Hi there, it's Gabriel here, SEO Manager at Hike SEO, and in this video, we'll be talking about content localization and how to adapt your content for international audiences. So in this video, you'll learn what is content localization all about. You'll learn why it's important for your international SEO success. And we'll go over a few different localization strategies that you can start applying and a few different tools you can start using as well. And then we'll go over some best practices around content localization so you can start applying that as well starting today. And then we'll go into some interesting examples of how content localization went wrong and why the companies didn't do that, and then basically showing you what not to do. So let's dive in. What is content localization? Content localization is more than just mere translating text from one language to another. It actually involves cultural adaptation, and it considers nuances such as idioms and cultural references. And this process ensures that content resonates with the target audience on a deeper level, and also ensures and prevents potential situations where you might offend that audience because the translation basically hit a nerve or wasn't culturally appropriate. So here's an example of McDonald's in the UK. You can see it has the standard kind of slider with some images and a specific headline right there. And when we go to different culture or different country, you can see it's completely different. So in Japan, you can see the slider actually has different slides and it obviously features completely different images and different colors and things that are appropriate to that culture. So you can see it's basically localized their content for that culture, not just translated it. So why is content localization so important for your international SEO? Well, it's really crucial for expanding your reach across different markets because it will not only allow you to get organic traffic, but help you increase your conversions. It will boost your global presence in search engines and also enhances engagement with the content because it resonates with that audience at a much deeper level. It will also foster stronger connections with customers globally, so it will enhance your brand in your business, not just from a traffic perspective, but from a sales point of view as well. So let's dive into some localization strategies. Firstly, you want to analyze the market trends, the consumer behavior in that culture, in that country, and the language preferences. And taking all of these into account and doing deeper research into that, the more you know, the better that you can localize your content for that culture. You want to conduct market research using surveys, focus groups, and analytics. And this can provide valuable insights into which regions hold the most potential for your localization efforts. So you don't want to just dive into a specific country or culture right away. You want to know first, before going in there, is it worth it based on your business strategies, based on the potential keyword volumes, all of this, and then understand how to localize it. So here are some available tools that you can use for content localization. So you can use Sentis, sentis.com, localize.com, smartling.com, phrase.com, and crowdin.com. These are a few of many different tools out there. A lot of these are used at an enterprise, commercial, professional level. So you can have a look at those, check them out, do your research, and then pick out the best one that fits your business and your budget. So let's dive into some best practices around content localization. Firstly, we'll talk about some marketing strategies. So you want to analyze the audience demographics and preferences in different regions. You want to know, exactly what audience you're targeting. Are they, between 30 and 50 years old? Are they mainly women? Are they professionals working in the city? Like, you need to know them at a very deep level and then understand that demographics from a cultural perspective as well. You want to focus on high impact materials like product descriptions, customer reviews, and promotional offers, ones that are commercially viable and that will give you a return on your investment for the content localization efforts and resources that you put in. And these types of content have the highest ROI when tailored to specific markets. So you don't want to just go in and localize everything right away. You need to prioritize it from the highest impact items and then move your way down to lower impact ones if necessary. Let's talk about some legal guidelines as well. You want to ensure that there's compliance with regional laws and regulations, because every country has their own specific laws and different things that you need to be aware of. So just by translating some content might not take into account some of these things. You want to make sure you localize it by understanding the legal framework around that country and that culture. So, for example, copyright laws, data protection regulations, things like that are important to keep in mind. And ensure that the messaging is culturally sensitive and aligned with the local norms. This is really important. It's one of the most important things you need to keep in mind when you do content localization. And that's why mere translation just doesn't cut it. You need to understand that a translation is culturally appropriate. You might have to change it a bit. Here are a few technical tips on how to do it. So you want to ensure that the proper encoding, the character encoding, and the character support for various languages are there when you do translate, because sometimes depending on the language or the culture, you might have to change up the character type or something like that. So make sure that's supported before going into that. You might want to use dynamic placeholders for variables in your content to accommodate varying text lengths in translations, because sometimes it might lengthen or shorten, and that can throw things off in terms of the layout and what you imagine it will look like when you do localize that content. And you want to also be aware of issues like text expansion or contraction during translation. Again, this could throw things off. So let's talk about some key performance indicators, things that you want to measure. So you want to establish some KPIs to evaluate the content localization success. You don't want to just do this and then step away from it and not measure it. You want to make sure that, okay, I've put in this effort, I've put in this resources. How has this impacted, for example, my traffic? How has it impacted my conversion rate? There's a few different things that you can look at. So return on investment, customer acquisition, retention rates for each target market, things like that. And you can do split tests. You can compare one variation of your content localization to another, things like that. So you can pick the best one eventually. It's all about testing and improving over time. You want to monitor the feedback from local users to gauge effectiveness of the local content. So when you do localize your content, maybe have a little sample group that you get feedback from. Maybe have a poll on your website that you get some feedback from visitors. Things like that. It's important to understand what your visitors' reaction is to that. Weed out any potential issues. Here's some other tips that you can also apply. So you want to implement automated quality checks using software to help catch any errors early on so that you don't have to fix it once you've already rolled it out. And you want to collaborate closely with translators and content localizers to clarify the content context and ensure that the translations are accurate. You want to make sure all of this is done before you actually hit the approve button and publish it on the site. Now, here's some interesting examples from past campaigns and content pieces from various companies. And some of these have gone wrong because the company wasn't aware of the cultural context, and just translating it wasn't enough. So that's why content localization is so important. So here's an example from KFC, the well-known slogan, "Finger licking good." And when they translated it into Chinese, it became "eat your fingers off" in terms of the actual translation, which wasn't really the best. So the localization ensures that the slogan is adapted for something that's more appropriate. So they changed it to mean "so good that you'll lick your fingers." And it's funny, but it can damage a brand's reputation quite badly if the content localization isn't done correctly. In the US, the date format is the month, day, year, while in many European countries, it's day first, then month, and then the year. And this is important because if you do localize some content, you want to make sure that the dates are switched around. Otherwise, there could be some confusion. Similarly, the 24-hour clock is used in many countries outside of the US, and making sure that this information is localized prevents any confusion around the time as well, and is understood by the audience. For example, if there was a date that was 0708 2024, was it the 7th of August or was it 8th of July, right? Depending on the audience. Colors can carry different meanings in different cultures. This is also something one may not fully understand or think about when translating things, especially from a visual user interface point of view. So, for example, white is associated with purity and weddings in Western cultures, but it's the color of mourning in many Asian cultures. So localization would adapt the color schemes in the visual content to resonate appropriately with the local audience. So that's important to understand as well. So they might change the colors on that country's website. Adapting humor and idioms to fit cultural context. So a joke that works in English might not work at all, or be offensive in another language. So we might want to check this out. A British joke about the weather might not resonate in countries with a different climate, especially one where it rains a lot. So they could feel like offended in that sense. Localization would basically create a new joke or a new idiom that makes sense and are actually humorous to that target audience. So it's important to not just translate, it's important to actually be aware of the sensitivity of that content in that cultural context. So here's an example for the company brand Electrolux. And basically this was where they translated the Swedish slogan to English, and it translated to "nothing sucks like an Electrolux," which basically implies that this brand is, bad, low quality, things like that. So it has a negative connotation. So if they would have localized this content correctly, they would have highlighted the product's efficiency without using this negative language. So they changed it to "Electrolux, the power of clean," which is a lot more appropriate. The Nike slogan. So they translated their slogan, "Just do it," into another language. And in China, the slogan was adapted to use sports, which is kind of quite differently than "just do it." But this is because they want to emphasize the motivational aspect of sports in a way that resonated with the Chinese cultural values around discipline and hard work. Another example is Chevrolet Nova. And basically, keeping the car's name Nova when they introduced it to the Latin American markets didn't go as planned, because Nova means "doesn't go" in Spanish. So localization would have involved changing the car's name, the actual product's name, to something that's more appealing, like Carib or Corvette or something like that. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about content localization, do let us know. And make sure that you check out Hike SEO. It's a fantastic platform, an all-in-one platform for SEO for beginners, small business owners, as well as agencies worldwide. And it makes it super simple and involves some really powerful AI features to reduce the time it takes to implement SEO, even if you have no technical experience. So make sure you check out Hike SEO. Link is in the description, and we'll see you there. All right, see you in the next video. Take care.